Hello and welcome to another episode of Jazzology presented by Savage Content. I'm your host, Willard Jenkins, and we're here alternating Fridays giving two jazz fans the opportunity to compete against each other for a chance to win $100. Each contestant will be asked a question worth 2 points. If they're unable to answer correctly, their opponent will have the chance to steal the question for 1 point. We'll ask 10 questions, and at the end of the 10 questions, the person with the lowest score will get a bonus question for the opportunity to tie the score. If they're successful, the game will go to sudden death. Each contestant will take turns trying to answer the multiple choice questions until we have a winner. Let's meet this week's contestants. Our reigning champion is Bret Primack, also known as the Jazz Video Guy, and formerly the jazz instigator known as the Pariah. Hey, Bret.
Hello, Willard. How are you?
Good. Last episode, you mentioned that the Jazz Video Guy is working towards a new interview show. Tell us more about that.
Pardon me. That is correct, Willard. I'm developing a new show. It's going to be broadcast live on Saturday night, and it will be called Sunday Night Live. And it'll be kind of the Tonight Show of jazz.
The Tonight Show of jazz. Who's your band leader?
I'm looking for one. You got any ideas?
All right. Our returning challenger is George V. Johnson Jr., a jazz vocalese exponent and all-around major jazz booster. George, tell us about your latest record.
My latest record is it's entitled "Walk Spirit, Talk Spirit," and it's in memory of McCoy Tyner. I wrote lyrics to two of his compositions: "Walk Spirit, Talk Spirit," and "Fly with the Wind." And it's starting to get a lot of notification out here on the airwaves, and I feel good about it. And now I'm ready for the next step, touring and performing.
So, how can people get in touch with that new release?
You can go to my website, www.georgevjohnsonjr.com.
All right.
PayPal, Cash App, you can order it right there. Bam.
Okay.
You get it in a few days.
Well, let's go to today's Jazzology questions. And as our reigning champion, Bret Primack goes first. You ready, Jazz Video Guy?
I'm ready, baby.
All right. Bret, the contemporary music magazine known as The Wire, out of the UK, took its name from a tune written by which of the following jazz musicians? Would that be A, Derek Bailey, B, Courtney Pine, C, Steve Lacy, D, Joe Harriott, or E, Ronnie Scott?
Wow. I spent some time in London in the late 90s working on a global new music network, a website. Didn't get a chance to get into the jazz scene too much, but I did spend some time at Ronnie Scott's fantastic club over there. I don't think it's Ronnie Scott. Courtney Pine, I first heard him when he played with Art Blakey. Wonderful tenor player. Some reason I don't think it's him. Steve Lacy, great soprano player. Loved his work with Cecil Taylor. I don't think it's him. I'm thinking either A, Derek Bailey, or Joe Harriott. Just a guess on my part. I'm going to go with D, Joe Harriott.
I'm sorry, Bret. That is incorrect. And now the question goes to George V. Johnson Jr. George, the contemporary music magazine, The Wire, out of the UK, took its name from a tune written by which of the following jazz musicians? Would that be A, Derek Bailey, B, Courtney Pine, C, Steve Lacy, D, Joe Harriott, or E, Ronnie Scott?
Be careful, George.
I'm going to go with Harriott.
You're going to go with D, Joe Harriott.
Yes.
Don't make me mad.
I'm sorry, you both got that one incorrect.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Why didn't you tell George that I already chose that?
I thought I was getting the next one, the one next before it. I got the same one. That's right. I'm sorry. Ugh.
The composer of that piece was Steve Lacy.
Ah, the great Steve Lacy.
He wrote a piece called The Wire. All right, so George, you're up next. Dancer, the great dancer and vocalist, Gregory Hines, once made an album with which of the following jazz greats? Would that be A, Art Blakey, B, Max Roach, C, Miles Davis, D, Horace Silver, or E, Sonny Rollins? And either you guys, you let me know if you need me to repeat a question.
They're at the bottom. I'm going to eliminate Miles. I'm going to eliminate Horace and Sonny. I'm going to say Max Roach.
Max Roach?
Yes.
That is incorrect. That is incorrect. So the question goes to Bret now. Bret, dancer and vocalist Gregory Hines once made an album vocalizing with which of the following jazz greats? A, Art Blakey, B, Max Roach, C, Miles Davis, D, Horace Silver, or E, Sonny Rollins?
That's interesting. You know, the only Miles Davis vocal I know, Bob Duro, on one of Miles's group, did Nothing Like You Has Ever Been Heard Before.
Yeah, we also did Blue Christmas.
Okay.
Yeah.
With Max, Abby Lincoln, and also Andy Bay. I don't know any vocals from Art Blakey. Abby also did something with Sonny Rollins. But in 1979, Horace recorded an album, Music of the Spheres, which is a great album, sadly overlooked. And Gregory Hines was the guest vocalist on that album.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Gregory Hines recorded with Horace Silver on the 1979 album Silver and Strings Play the Music of the Spheres.
Great album.
Records in 1979. And I'm impressed, Bret. Not only off the top did you name the album, but you gave the year that it was released.
Well, I'm a tremendous Horace Silver fan, and I feel that his music, like from the late 70s on, has never been given the recognition it deserved. He did Horace Silver and brass, Silver and voices, Silver and percussion. These were great albums. For some reason, Blue Note has never released them.
And that beautiful Native American record he made as well.
Silver and percussion, yeah.
Yes. So, Bret, you're up next. National Endowment for the Arts Jazz Master, and she was part of the newest class of NEA Jazz Masters. NEA Jazz Master violinist Regina Carter was once a member of the Indigo String Quartet. Who was the cellist in that band? Was it A, Akua Dixon, B, Abdul Wadud, C, Mark Feldman, D, Deidre Murray, or E, the new MacArthur Genius recipient, Tomika Reed?
Yes, first of all, congratulations to Tomika Reed. She's really the only jazz artist in this year's group of MacArthur Genius grants. Well, first of all, Indigo String Group, I immediately think of women. So I'm going to eliminate Mark Feldman, excellent violinist, and Abdul Waoud. That takes us to Akua Dixon or Deidre Murray. I got hip to Deidre Murray when she was playing with Hannibal back in the 70s. Wonderful violinist. But I'm going to go with the former wife of Steve Torre, and that would be Akua Dixon.
Yep. You are absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. In fact, Akua Dixon's daughter,
yes,
Andromeda Toure, participated in Jazzology.
Yeah,
and is a programmer at Sirius XM on Saturdays and Sundays.
Did not know that. Wow.
She is. She has a program called Growing Up Jazz on Sirius XM on Saturdays and Sundays.
Well, she grew up in a jazz family, that's for sure.
Yes, she did.
Yeah.
And her mother, as you mentioned, was Akua Dixon. And I guess you had eliminated Tomika Reed because she's too young.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Because when I think of that group, I think we're going back to the 80s, right?
Yeah. And George,
yes,
Tomika Reed is from DC. In case you didn't know that. But George, you're up next.
Let's go.
Come on, George.
The jazz club in the Los Angeles area that was known as the Jazz Bakery was operated by which of the following people? Would that be A, Barbara Morrison, B, Billy Higgins, C, Henry Franklin, D, John Clayton, or E, Ruth Price?
Well, I remember networking, sending things out to that place. And I know it's not Billy, it's not Henry, it's not John. I'm going to go with The Price is Right.
You're going to go with what? With whom?
The Price is Right, Ruth Price.
Yeah.
That is correct. It was Ruth Price who operated the Jazz Bakery. So, Bret, you're up next. The drummer, Cindy Blackman Santana, who has excelled at both jazz and rock drumming, was principally influenced by which of the following drummers? Would that be A, Jack DeJohnette, B, Roy Haynes, C, Alan Dawson, D, Tony Williams, or E, none of the above?
Wow, that's a tough one. You know, I remember Cindy, she was from Hartford, Connecticut. And, you know, Jackie McLean has a fantastic school up there. Dolly and Jackie, tremendous gift to the Hartford community.
The Artist Collective, yes.
The Artist Collective.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend Walter Bishop Jr., who was associated with Jackie, introduced me to Cindy when she was just a teenager. Now, Alan Dawson was based in Boston. I don't know if she heard him. See, this is tough because I can hear a little bit of Cindy. I can hear a little bit of Jack, Roy, Tony. Yikes. All right, I'm going to have to guess here. I'm going to say Tony, D.
That's correct.
What a sound.
That is correct. In fact, Bret, there's a little bit of a trick on that question.
What's the trick?
The trick is the answer could have been D, Tony Williams, or C, Alan Dawson.
Okay.
And that's because she studied with Alan Dawson at Berklee College of Music.
There you go.
Yes. But Tony
go.
Williams was first and foremost. So you are correct. Tony Williams.
Yeah, I think a lot of drummers who came up at that time were influenced by Tony. Pretty heavy
Absolutely.
spirit.
Jazzology is brought to you by Savage Content, an exciting new purveyor of quality music programming. From podcasts to live performances and interviews, Savage Content offers an eclectic mix of curated entertainment programming for all music lovers. Be sure to follow Savage Content on social media to hear about our latest releases. And now it's time to ask our contestants our favorite question. Savage Content has hosted 2 video contests asking contestants how they fell in love with jazz. So for each episode of Jazzology, we like to pose that question to our contestants as to how they fell in love with jazz. But in this case, both of these gentlemen are past contestants, so they've answered that question. So, Bret, let me ask you, if someone new to jazz were to ask you which 3 artists they should check out first on record, who would they be?
You know, that's something I hear a lot, Willard. People who are new to the Jazz Video Guy channel say, who should I check out? I mean, I'm new to this music. They like something that I put up. I have to tell them the first 3 artists that turned me onto jazz in a big way. 2 are probably many people's favorite, 1 perhaps not. Little known fact, when I was a kid, I was a trumpet player. At that time, coming up in the late 50s and early 60s, there were music education programs in schools. And I started playing the trumpet in 4th grade and with lessons in public school. And then I went down to a local music store in Hartford, Parisi's Music, and hung out with the older trumpeters. And there were guys there. I said, what should I listen to? Miles Davis was number 1. Lee Morgan was number 2. And then the third one was Maynard Ferguson, because for many young trumpeters, that kind of high note bravura in a big band, in an exciting band situation, was really cool.
That's the trumpet. Which 3 jazz artists in general would you recommend people listen to who don't know jazz?
All right, Willard, you could give me a hard time here. All right. No problem. I would say Duke Ellington, Miles Davis, Charlie Parker.
All right, George V. I'll pose the same question to you. If someone new to jazz were to ask you which 3 artists they should check out first on record, who would that be?
I'd say Charlie Parker first.
Okay.
Then I'd say Eddie Jefferson.
All right.
And James Moody.
And James Moody. Okay, so you got real personal with those last 2. but I can dig it, George.
They're the greatest to me.
So neither one of you recommends Pops Armstrong. Is that what I'm hearing?
He's in my second pitch.
Okay.
But I gotta say, first time I saw George Johnson was with James Moody, and it was fantastic, man.
You're not surprised by his choices.
No, I'm not. And you know, he's a vocalist and a man more people should listen to and know about.
Uh-oh, you got a publicist in the making here, George.
I only speak the truth.
Thank you. I'm the mystery link, people say.
George, you're up next. You ready?
Okay. Yes.
The emerging young jazz pianist, Sullivan Fortner, who played with Roy Hargrove and currently plays regularly with Cecile McLaurin Salvant, among others, studied at which music conservatory? Would that be A, Berklee College of Music, B, Manhattan School of Music, C, Juilliard School, D, Oberlin Conservatory, or E, New England Conservatory?
I'm going to have to take a guess on that one. I'm going to have to take a guess on that one.
All right.
I'm going to say Oberlin. Oberlin Conservatory.
That is correct. But that was your trick question, because you could have answered either D, Oberlin, or B, Manhattan School of Music, because when he left Oberlin, he went to study at Manhattan School of Music. So there you have it.
What is it with these trick questions today?
Oh, it's because it's the nature of the competition, Bret.
Okay.
Are you ready, Bret?
I'm ready.
All right, now we have two, one for each of you, two true or false questions. Bret, true or false? The alto saxophonist Vi Red also sang.
True.
That is correct. Alto saxophonist Vi Red did indeed also sing. George, your true or false question. The pianist Orrin Evans the pianist Orrin Evans' father was the late playwright Don Evans.
True, because I was in about 5 of his plays.
Wow.
There you go.
He taught
right.
at Trenton. He was professor at Trenton State, and he was a director. And he wrote he's one of the greatest playwrights ever. And I had the when I lived in Trenton, I was in the Trenton Players, and I was in several of his plays, quite a few of his plays. And when I met him, I was actually did a show with his mother's is also an opera singer.
Well, I know that, and you know his son Orrin Evans is one of the superior jazz piano players we have out here today.
Oh yes, I've been watching him since he was a little kid.
Yes. Okay, Bret, you're up next.
All right.
The Montreux, sometimes mispronounced Montreux, but the Montreux Jazz Festival was founded by which of the following people? A, Carlo Pignata. B, George Wein. C, Claude Nobbs. D, Jimmy Lyons. E, Norman Granz.
Well, Norman Granz, if I'm not mistaken, no jazz festival, but jazz at the Philharmonic, certainly.
Which was a precursor to the jazz festival movement.
Okay.
Yes.
And certainly I have tremendous respect for Norman Granz for breaking down a lot of the racial barriers in the 40s.
Absolutely.
Jimmy Lyons, the Monterey Jazz Festival, which you attended recently.
Yes.
George Wein, the Newport Jazz Festival. Wow. Incredible run for that. Carlo Pignata. I'm sorry. I'm probably going to have pizza for lunch today to make up for that. If I'm not mistaken, Umbria. So that would leave in Switzerland, Claude Nobbs.
And that is correct. It was Claude Nobbs who founded the Montreux Jazz Festival. George.
Yes.
Time to play some catch up.
Okay.
Which of the following piano keyboard players did not record with Miles Davis? Would that be A, George Duke, B, Lonnie Liston Smith, C, Adam Holtzman, D, Robert Irving III, or E, Rachel Z?
Wow. That's a hard one right there. That's a hard one right there. I'm going to say.
Go ahead.
I'm going to say. I'm going to say George Duke.
George Duke?
Yes.
You are correct. But again, another trick question, because there are actually two of those piano keyboardists in that list who did not record with Miles Davis, and that would be George Duke, A, or E, Rachel Z.
Willard.
So you are correct, George.
Willard, you need a new title. Willard the Trickster Jenkins.
So George is down one as we enter the bonus round. So George, you're up first to try and catch up in the bonus round. George, you ready?
I'm ready.
The trombone player Steve Davis, who has a new album out on the Smoke Sessions label, studied with and graduated under what great jazz educator? Would that be A, Herb Alpert, B, George Russell, C, Rand Blake, D, Jackie McLean, or E, Wynton Marsalis?
I'm going to say Jackie.
Jackie McLean?
Yes.
Yes, that is the correct answer. Steve Davis did indeed study under Jackie McLean at the University of Hartford, that music program that Bret referenced a bit earlier. So that takes us to sudden death. Oh boy. Sudden death. And Bret, you're up first. The rising South African pianist composer named Nduduzo Makhathini, who has now made two very well-noted recent albums for the most trusted label in jazz, Blue Note Records, is a native of which South African city? Would that be A, Port Elizabeth, B, Johannesburg, C, Durban, E, Cape Town, D, Cape Town, or E, none of the above?
Wow. I have no idea.
As he taps away on his keyboard.
Yeah, I'm just going to guess. I'm going to say Cape Town, D.
Cape Town? That is incorrect. So, George, your
George,
turn.
go for it. Come on, George.
George, the rising, well-noted South African pianist and composer Nduduzo Makhathini, who has now made two recent albums for the most trusted label in jazz, Blue Note Records, is a native of which South African city? Is it A, Port Elizabeth, B, Johannesburg, C, Durban, and D, Cape Town has been eliminated, or E, none of the above?
I love that young man. That walk spirit, talk spirit he does. I've been listening to him quite a bit here recently.
Uh-oh. All right.
Uh-oh.
I'm going to say none above.
Wow.
And George V. Johnson Jr. is our winner today because the correct answer is E, none of the above. And Duduzo Makatini is a native of Pietermaritzburg, South Africa. So the answer was E, none of the above. So congratulations to George V. Johnson Jr. on your win. And if anyone watching would like to become a contestant on Jazzology, please click the link in the description below and fill out the form. You must be 18 years old or older, and be sure to follow us on social media at Savage Content to get all the latest news and updates. Thank you so much to our past champion, Bret Primack, the jazz video guy.
Thank you, Bret. You did a good job. Sorry.
Look out for Bret's new talk show on the Jazz Video Guy YouTube channel. And to our champion, George V. Johnson Jr., and to everyone who joined us today, remember, you can check out Jazzology every other Friday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you missed the show live, you can find the archive on the Savage Content YouTube channel. Always a pleasure, gentlemen. And until next time, we bid you peace.
And blessings.